helping creators navigate the waters of podcasting. Welcome to the Podcast Cadet Training Series, where we simplify the world of podcasting with techniques and advice from professionals across the podcasting industry. Hey everybody, Chris Jordan with Podcast Cadet here. How y'all doing?
You're breaking up.
I am. How about that? All right. We just passed out a little QR code if you want to take part in any of the Q&A session today regarding starting your own podcast. If you're looking at starting a podcast, if you already have a podcast that you want to take to a next level, feel free to scan that. You have an opportunity to ask any questions throughout. This is normally, our boot camp is normally like a half-day long seminar. So our questions at the beginning will kind of give us an idea where the audience is and what we're going to be basing our presentation on. All right?
Which one is that one?
Yes, please do participate, because that way we talk about the things that apply to you or that you're most interested in. And we don't just talk about something where you're like, I already know that. You don't have to tell me how to plug in the microphone, because some people need us to tell them. And that's okay.
Some people do.
And that's okay. I'm happy to show you. But that way we say this stuff. We only have 45 minutes, so we want to be like,
Yeah.
Whenever it all fails.
it's time or money, and we don't have either. I was like, I feel like I should fill it out.
All right. We have a few responses there. I'm going to go ahead and bring up our next question in the poll. Looks like everybody here so far has a topic that they feel passionately about. Our second question is, at what level would you place your technical aptitude? Number one, I am proficient in the use of computers and related technologies and social media. I use computers and social media, but recording or live streaming seems really hard. I know how to use my phone and make emails, but what's a microphone and a hashtag? And the last answer is, what the Shasta is technical aptitude? I thought podcasting was easy.
Podcasting is easy, though.
Sure. All right.
With a little support.
Okay.
Fantastic. Looks like most everybody here, which I would hope at a comic book convention, has a decent grasp of social media, technology, gaming, interfaces, things like that. So our last question for you guys is, why did you attend the Podcast Cadet Boot Camp today?
I love the real-time answers.
It
like
is super
the
fun.
suspense is
isn't
killing
it?
me right now.
Well, you can look right here. You can see them all on the board. So looks like we are at almost 50-50 with I already have a podcast and need to learn more. I have an idea, and I think I want to make a podcast, which is typically the case, I mean, unless we're speaking specifically to business owners, things like that. So once again, everybody, Chris Jordan here with Podcast Cadet. My wife, Amy, is one of the co-founders.
Hi.
And our good friend, Travis Lawson from here in Houston, is with Always Press Record. They do a lot of distribution of content on Roku, Amazon, places like that. So between us, we kind of tell people ins and outs of podcasting, things like engaging your audience, the difference between trying to use social media to garner listeners and engaging a community. The first part that I always talk about, especially for people that think they want to make a podcast or already have a podcast and need to learn more, it basically boils down to two things, folks. Podcasting is great. Podcasting is fun. I have 3 shows myself. This is not what I do 100% full time. I have been a radio and TV producer for years. I'm normally out traveling the country doing events like this in the world of AV. Yeah. When it comes down to podcasts, it's one of two things, time or money. Most of the podcasts that are out there right now, that's our jazz hands moment, by the way, everybody. Whenever you hear time and money today, feel free to give a jazz hand.
It's going to come up again.
It will come up a lot.
It's what we're talking about.
most shows that are out there right now, and as of 2020, when the world shut down, there were just over 1 million podcasts.
Wow.
Just over 1 million shows. Believe it or not, almost 70% of those shows do not have more than 20 episodes.
Just
because
think about that.
it's either time or money. Jazz hands, once again. It is literally the fact whenever you start a show of get ready to either talk to yourself for a very long, long time. One of the best articles I've read in my 10-year podcasting journey was literally titled, "So You're Going to Start a Podcast, Get Ready to Be Lonely."
Yeah.
Because it does feel for a little while like you're talking to yourself. It may take a little while, depending on your show, to actively build that community engagement, that follower. Even though you're out on an Anchor, Amazon, what have you, remember, there's 1 million plus shows out there. So for you to actively pop up in an algorithm, once again, jazz hands, 2 things, time or money. One of the 2. If you have the time to invest in over 100 episodes, guaranteed you will be found. Just organically, people will find you because eventually they will run out of the other content in your category. The other shows fizzled out. They experienced the dreaded, quote, pod fizzle.
Yeah.
That happens to most people when they find out that, yeah, we spent an hour recording an episode, but it took us 2 hours to edit that episode.
Yeah.
It took us an hour and a half to promote that episode on social media on one platform properly. So kind of like whenever I worked with rock and roll bands, the example I always gave them is it's a 1-to-3 ratio for anybody involved in the studio. And it's literally an investment in time. For every 1 hour in the studio, you've got to spend 3 hours on social media. You've got to spend 3 hours a week trying to build community around your show. The example I give people is you built a show, you raised a minnow, it's now a fish. You want to set it free in the ocean and let everybody watch it swim. Did you put a GPS tag on that fish?
Yeah.
Did you let everybody know what part of the ocean you let it go in? Because those things are important. We'll be getting into, in a little while, things like branding, like buying a URL, that kind of stuff. Is it a necessity for a show? Absolutely not. Is it something that any wise marketing and branding person would have you do? Yes, it is. Even if you're not going to start your URL right now, it's about owning that property. I have a show called Dudes and Beer. Literally getting ready to rebrand it because, A, I cannot make a social media ad to promote my community because Facebook doesn't promote alcohol.
The show's not about alcohol.
Not about alcohol at all.
Not alcohol at all.
It's also not about dudes, which is why the rebrand.
Yeah. So those are things that you want to consider about. Longevity of your show. My show has kind of evolved into something totally different over the years, and we've reached a larger audience. We've reached that point of we cannot push this community any further than it is on social media. So in order for me to attack that part of the day, I literally have to rebrand. And with that, let's bring it into the world of social media because I think that's probably one of the most nebulous parts for a lot of people.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with reference to our questions here in the poll has to do with why you are podcasting. For anybody who's just hanging out, I'm Amy once again. Hi, Amy Jordan. Nice to meet you. Super glad to see you. Why am I podcasting? Well, number one, I like people to listen to my voice, right? I would like you to pay attention to me, and look at how many people are paying attention to me. It's going well so far. But you want to go into podcasting for something that you can do long term, right? You can't go into podcasting to make money unless you're famous already. I'm real sorry. It just doesn't work that way because brands want to see something. If you're going to monetize your podcast, you have to put stuff out there. Yeah. You have to be better than the people that Chris is talking about who are putting out 20 episodes and quitting, right? So I guess there's a threshold of it's cool to quit now. I'm not into quitting, but I've always been into like, let's keep doing this, you guys. P.S. I started with 2 co-hosts and now I have none. So I'm into doing it consistently all the time, and other people aren't, right? So that's part of why you want to do it. You need a drive. You need to be able to do it over and over and over, even when it's terrible. I interview people, right? That's we were talking a moment ago. Chris was talking about the difference between talking to yourself or interviewing people. I interview people. So I have guests, but that does not always mean that the guests are great, right? I've had to edit quite a few episodes to make them great, right? That is time. That is time after. I have a conversation with a human being, I connect with them, and then I listen to it again, listening to myself. Thank God I love myself, right? Otherwise, it would be trouble. But so I listen to the whole thing again, and then I'm like, okay, well, what did we really talk about? Because the experience of talking to another person is different than what actually happens, right? We can all sort of agree with that in life. But so you need to go back and you need to edit those things. And I think that one thing that people don't think about is, well, how am I going to put time into this? How am I going to live in the longevity of this experience? You need to do something that you're passionate about. What are you already talking about? What are your friends like? Okay, Lorraine, enough. We get it. You like Black Widow, right? Okay. That's a podcast idea. When your friends no longer want to listen to what you have to say, the rest of the world would like to hear it, right? So you could do a podcast, but your excitement, your passion only takes you so far. You also need to put in the back work. And I know you're like, oh, that sucks. I have no interest in work. Why would I want to sign up for doing stuff that requires effort and, making people try to like me? You don't. Here's the thing. People think when we say social media, when we say get out there and connect with your audience might not be who you thought it was at all. Y'all, I do a podcast about theater kids. I interview people that do theater so that people who are interested in theater can meet all these personalities across the world. And somehow, my audience is 50% from India.
Well, and no.
They love my show. They love it. I get all these comments. This is a great interview.
Quick.
I have interviewed 2 people in India, right? Not like 25 or 100. Like I'm covering the whole scene, and they're like, oh, she's great. I mean, I like my people. I like my friends in India. But wow, I just had no idea.
Yeah.
So we did things like, what's the app? What's the podcast app in India? Let's make sure we're on that so that those people who want to listen to me have easy access, right? Yeah. You don't know what social media is going to bring to you. You just have to let it happen. You put stuff out there and you're like, oh, I want people to like me, so I'm going to make a thing so they like me. No, do your thing. Be excited about your thing. And the other people who are excited about your thing, this place, y'all, like, we didn't all know each other, but here we are hanging out, being interested in the same stuff, right?
And one note on your audience, Amy, you're actually one of the shows on our network that took like 3 years to hit hard stride.
Yeah.
Like, you had listeners, they were regular listeners, they were devoted listeners, but just here in the last year and a half, has it been where you've been getting thousands of downloads? Has it been where, like, you have not dipped below stuff?
It was not the case up top. It was not. It was very much me doing interviews, and like my 2 friends were like, good job.
Yeah.
That was it.
The reason I brought that up is because we had a related question already from Maddie. Thank you so much. How do you begin to market your podcast, and how far back should you schedule your marketing campaign? I'm one of those that as soon as you've got a, quote, brand, like you've got a logo, you've Google searched your name, and here's a hot tip, folks. Make sure whether or not you're buying a URL, go to GoDaddy, Bluehost, HostGator, I don't care. Go there and search your name. Make sure nobody has your URL, whether you're buying it or not.
It will come up later.
It's true.
It will, and it's a major part of your marketing, especially if you're somebody who's looking to do podcasting for profit.
Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest things that I see people kind of ignoring is that buy local concept with your show. As as a former on-air producer, that's money.
That is money.
You literally have the opportunity to bring your favorite local business who may listen to your show to a worldwide audience. And to not be selling that opportunity is crazy pants. Literally.
Well,
jazz hands. Time and money. Time and money.
Trey, what
Go
were you
ahead,
saying,
Trey.
Well, it is the time and money thing, but once again, it's about knowing what the final goal is, right? For us, we take podcasting with a little bit of a twist because everything is recorded on video as well as audio.
Oh, yeah.
Because we believe that podcasting is the next form of TV eventually. And it might not be here right now, but it will be later. And a lot of what your marketing is about how much content you have built up, right? So we were just saying that, what was it, 26%? Barely get over to 100 episode marker, right? Let me just tell you what a 100 episode marker is. If you do 100 episodes at 30, let's just say 30 minutes each, right? Maybe even an hour. You have 100 hours of content. If you were to film that, right, and you go by the Gary Vee principle of every single hour of content, you chop that up 16 different times so that you can monetize that on every single social platform, then you have 100 opportunities to do that, right? 100 opportunities to chop that up 16 different ways so that somebody who you never, ever know will find you. Always Press Record is based out of Katy, Texas, ladies and gentlemen, but we are big in the Netherlands. We are big in France. I don't know how to speak French, but there are people who love the political atmosphere and the conversations that we have in Houston, Texas. And that's the thing, is that part of being a podcaster is that you're building up the community through your content, right? Every single time that you press record, you are literally letting the world know who you are on your terms. And because you're letting them know on your terms, you get to cultivate that community, and that community will therefore turn into dollars, right? More opportunities, local partnerships. It's all about the social media aspect is all about how you turn over that 1 hour of content, right? To get to 100 episodes, if you're doing one per week, that's 2 years, everybody. Right? That's 2 years of content that you have to deliver. I can just tell you right now, when I started my company, I had 3 partners. Now I only have 2.
Right?
Well, and to bring it back to marketing real quick, just the idea of joining social media, which platforms to be a part of, how do you go about marketing your show? Like I said, I mean, prime example right now, like I said at the beginning, my show is getting ready to rebrand. That does not happen until episode 350, coming up the first week of December. First week of December will be my official first show as my new title. But I have already started that promotional push. I have already gone onto my social media page. All my social media banners are now Curious Realm. They are no longer Dudes and Beer. Every episode, I spend the first 5 minutes directing people to the Curious Realm website, which is already up, live, copy for copy, page for page, post for post, what Dudes and Beer is. And basically what that's doing, that's actively garnering me twice as much SEO with the same information on 2 websites. So...
May I discuss a bit of the how you should schedule your marketing campaign?
Oh, yeah.
I have 2 thoughts on this. First thought is, if you're just starting, give yourself 50 episodes to figure out what you're doing. Even if you're like, oh no, I am rock solid, gonna talk about chairs that were made in the Netherlands in the 1800s. I love them. They're the number one thing I talk about. Great. How many episodes can you get through? Maybe you get through 10 and you're like, maybe we should open it up to chairs made anywhere.
Chairs and
so
tables.
Chairs and tables. Then it's a furniture show. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know how much work you might have to put into making this interesting if it's super, super niche. And don't get me wrong, those super niche people who love the chairs from the Netherlands in the 1800s are like, oh my God, you guys, there's a podcast.
Dedicated
so they love
listeners.
you and they will stay with you. But if you open it up and you're like, guys, you know that furniture was made everywhere? And they're like, what? So you can do that. So 50 episodes in, you have a feel for what you're going to do. And then you can craft your marketing campaign so that the thing that your show, what it really is about, is what you're highlighting. So again, I do interviews, so mine are like, look at how cool this guy is who I'm interviewing. Listen to this cool theater thought he had. This is about people in theater that I'm interviewing, right? So it's like, whoa, he had a really like mind-blowing idea about performing on stage. And I put these things up as little snippets so people are like, ooh, that's interesting. Hopefully it ends up on like a meme Facebook group. That's what I'm hoping for, right? What we're all hoping for, to be on a meme Facebook group, our content. And then people are like, that's cool. I want to listen to more, right? But you have to honor whatever promise you give to your audience. If you say, every week, you guys, I will talk about some solid furniture makers across the world and the cool stuff they're doing, then that's what you need to give them when they come in there, right? So I think it's just really important for you to know. And then once you know for sure what your podcast is really about, what you can really continue to do over and over, then you are able to create the marketing and really appeal to those people. And again, you don't know where those people are. They could be anywhere in the world, and they love it.
Well, and, go ahead, Trey, go ahead.
Well, I was actually going to piggyback on that with some of the questions that we're getting. Someone asked, how long should a podcast be?
Yep.
And so here's a real-world answer, because I'm all about giving real-world answers, okay? If you only have 2 hours a week to really devote to editing or doing anything post-production on your podcast, you want to keep it under an hour. Podcasts can be at any length. I wouldn't suggest 15 minutes unless you're doing a TikTok and trying to do all those different things. But like if you're really trying to do the podcast life, 30 minutes to 45 minutes, you can go over an hour. But let me just tell you, another thing that you're about to figure out when you get into the podcast game is that you got to look over at your analytics to know what the data is really telling you. And I can honestly tell you that after 30 minutes to 45 minutes, even for my most popular shows that I have on the roster, everybody kind of at least will turn it off or come back to it. And let me just tell you, the kiss of death is when you have to come back to a podcast. Because it's really, really hard to tell people how to get to a podcast, because that's the first question I always get. Well, how do I get to a podcast? And then the second thing is once they get there, is I got to get back there to finish it. That's probably not going to happen. So you want to be at 30 to 45 minutes. And I'm going to let Chris talk about the gear. But let me just tell you, just from a personal experience, I started Always Press Record with the webcam. I moved up from a webcam to my iPhone, and now I have a Sony that I had to learn how to use. But I had to learn how to use it, right? So don't let technology, don't let any of the barriers get in your way, because you got to get to 100 episodes, right?
Yeah, you got time.
That sets you apart. Yeah. You'll figure it out.
Learn what you're doing in trial and error, or have a friend or hire someone help you. I married a sound guy so that I was taken care of, you guys. I'm fine now because we are wedded, I will never not have a microphone.
Yeah, that's true. Just to bring that back home real quick, when it comes to social media, things like that, because we did have another question regarding the order of importance, I guess the order of what should you pay more attention to, social media, website, uploading to platforms, things like that. Because that really does kind of tie right into the marketing. And when it comes to, I'm 45. Most of my listeners and most of the people listening to my content are pretty close to my age. There are a few young folk out there listening, but I don't have a TikTok. Ain't nobody in my world got time for that. So it's just literally one of those, if my audience isn't on TikTok, why would I invest time in TikTok?
Yep.
Not that it's not great, not that it's not a fantastically fun platform, but if your demographic, that's where my broadcast producer hat gets worn, is that your demographic? Because if it's not, you need to rethink that. And even going back to branding and marketing, even the idea of your show description, and the idea of consistency. Consistency. That cannot be overstated enough. Whether it's consistency in putting out content, consistency in your messages or imaging, what have you. Consistency is the name of the game. When you tell Google, every Tuesday, I'm going to be releasing an episode about Scandinavian furniture from the 1970s, and it has at least 5 backlinks to related information, and it's got 3 embedded players. One of them's a video player from YouTube, and then you've got a picture that's backlinked. Google knows that not only are you providing that basic organic information that people are searching for, but you're providing it on a regular basis, and you are providing those people other sources of that same information. So whether or not you have millions of listeners, you can still rank at the top of Google.
I know this sounds really scary when he's like 45 links and you're going to put them on the thing.
Nah.
Here's the thing. If it's something that you already love, you know where these websites are because you're going to them every day. Yep. Who do you go to get the information that you like? You're like, but the chair website I go to and look at every day while I'm working is this. The Pinterest board that I look at that puts up the great things is this. You know where they are because they're where you go, right? Yeah. So it's not as hard as it seems to be like, oh my God, I got to find all these things. You already know them because it's your passion. It's the thing that you're talking about. You're like, I love these chairs. They're the best chair. I like that we're sticking with this, by the way. These chairs are the best chairs ever. You know, but you'll have like, the chair boards on Reddit. Oh, man, they're always talking about chairs. And like all the different groups. But you never know where they are, and you just go where you go because you're a fan just like they are, right?
A quick raise of hands. Who has a YouTube channel? YouTube channels?
Yeah.
So YouTube is a great place, right?
Second largest search engine in the world.
For all the different podcasting, right? And here's the great thing about YouTube that I will keep on saying. Like, you can keep on doing the YouTube. It also has copyright protection for all your property, right? So that's another good thing. But here's the reason why you might want to consider the website, right? It's very, very hard to get somebody to go in there, put in the right keywords and everything else to bring up your content, even if they're trying to get there, right? If I go onto YouTube right now and I look up Always Press Record, it brings me up like a band that once had it, some random topic that had it. But if I go to alwayspressrecord.com, you'll get everybody on the roster. And that's the reason why I suggest in the end, to bring everything together, you want your own URL. And the reason why is because then your branding, right, as people start looking it up and everything like that, your website will be the destination. It won't always be YouTube. Because one day YouTube won't be the cool place to be. Well, but your website might.
And it's not just that. Whenever you're popping all those descriptions up, things like that on all those platforms, you're literally doing their SEO work for them and paying to do it. Just so you know, unless you're using Anchor, a free service, which is great and fantastic, but hopefully the free model survives. I know it did not on Wooshka. That was a great platform, still around, still out there, still operating. It was from the Southern Hemisphere in Australia. And they had free for about 3 years, and that eventually waned away, and they came to all of us and were like, hey, if you could pay for this, that would be great. So not that they are bad. They are not bad. Somebody asked the question just a while ago, what kind of budget, how much money does it take to start up a budget for a podcast? Do you have a phone in your hand? If you do, I assume you do because you asked the question on my mobile service. So if you have a phone, you're like 3/4 of the way there. There are lapel mics that you can buy for your phone that are like $20 by Movo that will attach to yourself and a guest.
And it sounds so good.
I literally used one to go live from the waiting room going into see my son be born. That's how mobile podcasting is. I was live on my phone on my podcasting service. They had to tell me to cut it off. That's how easy it is. That's how cheap it can be. If you've got a phone, you need nothing more. Most phones nowadays have a 4K camera on them.
Absolutely.
Most phones have some incredible technology on there for noise cancellation, things like that. So
I started my TV network with my iPhone, as I said before. First year, made 352 videos. Why? Because I only pushed one button on the contraption that I knew.
Yeah.
I didn't know my camera the way that I should have known my camera to start up a TV station. But guess what? I knew my iPhone better than anything.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, like, you go ahead and, you know, YouTube University is real.
God, yeah.
And we should all share our knowledge and bring in that knowledge that's out there.
I'm here to tell you, my man, I do this for a living.
Yeah.
This is the world I live and swim in, projection and events and all that. I cannot tell you how many times I've walked in to a totally different piece of gear that I'm used to operating, and they're like, you okay? And I'm like, give me 20 minutes.
Because YouTube will show...
Literally, there's some dude like me out there on YouTube going like, okay, guys, let's get into the deep menus on the Barco 128 switcher. And that's what I have to know in 10 minutes.
You can create a YouTube channel with no money. You can eventually... create something, you know, you can put money into it, you can pay for certain things, but you don't need any money to do that. You can also join a number of podcast platforms. To buy a website costs a small amount of money. It's really not that much. Yeah. And legit, if you Google the name of the podcast and make sure nobody else has it, and nobody else really cares about the phrase, like it's not like thisiscool.com or whatever, like you're going to be able to buy it and it's not going to be that expensive. You buy a website and then all you do is certain companies that you have, you pay for a monthly maintenance fee, and they essentially give you a space to put your big files. And you put your big files in there, and then you are able to put them on your website. Now, you don't have to learn WordPress. People are like, oh my God, I do not want to have to learn WordPress. That's fine, you don't have to.
But was it hard?
I figured it out, and P.S., I am not great at the technology, right? But I deal with my WordPress every week, and it's not bad. Once you YouTube yourself into figuring it out / have your husband tell you what it is. He's real nice, I promise. But you can do it. There's also things like Wix. There's things like, what's the other one? Squarespace. That's on every podcast, of course. There
are numerous
but they can make it so easy for you to do this kind of thing, and it's not that expensive. Once you have your own website and you put your content first on your own website, it's yours.
Yeah.
Putting it on your own website that you own essentially is sort of like a copyright for your own stuff.
Because that's the game.
It shows digitally with the ones and zeros that you're the first person to ever put this stuff up. Yeah. And so it'll come back to you. So even if from there you share it to every podcast platform in the whole world, which by the way you can with an RSS feed. I know what that word means. And P.S. we'll tell you later. But like once you spread it to other places, it still comes back to you. It draws attention back to your website. And your website can just be like you on the front, like, hey, give me money. I like money. And people are like, charming. I love it. Let's give this girl money, right?
Well, and with that in mind, there's 101 ways to monetize nowadays, especially with stuff like Patreon out there. I mean, even having a PayPal, like you can go through and make a PayPal donate QR, things like that for your website. Just to give y'all an example of a website post, like what we were talking about, full of links, players, things like that. This is my episode from this last week, and you can see where all of these little red spots here are all hyperlinks going back to other people's content. This is my embedded player from one platform. These are embedded players from my actual server and my stuff. So whenever you click it, it opens up just a file in a window, things like that. I'm also serving up my Facebook video that goes out live. And then links. And even here, if you click the picture, link. All those things are important. Once again, my favorite things to work are white hat conferences where I get to literally get paid to sit in the back and take mad notes on this nerd stuff. But
there are other nerds that want to hear about it, and he has a whole podcast about it.
There are so many.
And they listen, and they're all like, nerd, I love it. Yes.
Well, I've been on it.
Where do I plug
it
in? How do I plug it? Oh, I love plugging it in. Oh, the faders.
Well, and, the thing is, it's when it comes to marketing, when it comes to getting the word out there, when it comes to building your community even, it is time and money. There's the jazz hands moment again.
And that's really the thing where where you're asking about budget, well, is how fast do you want to go?
Yeah.
So like most people who come to me, I tell them the same thing that I've just told you, how you can do it all for free without me. And then somebody goes, all right, well, I don't want to do all that stuff. I don't want to learn this, and I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to press record.
Yeah.
Well, guess what, people? we can help you with all that. But the thing is that it's only going to accelerate so much. So it might accelerate your editing, right? But it won't accelerate your growth, right? Like I can honestly tell you, starting off a podcast, your group of friends are going to be the naysayers that you hear the most. So, but one day there will be somebody who randomly will recognize you, and like it happened today, it will randomly recognize you and go, hey, I know you. I know why I know you. I don't know how, but you sound familiar. And then all of a sudden you go, yeah, I have a podcast. And that's a cool feeling, everybody. Yeah. That's the reason why we do it, because it's cool to have a podcast, because you get to be the star for a second. And for a minute, maybe even an hour. We were talking about the length, you know.
Well, in the last 10 minutes, let's address these last two questions, because I do believe that they truly address what you were just talking about, and that is, how do you connect with other podcasters for collaborations and special guests, and how important are events like what we are at right now to growing a podcast, and how do you introduce a stranger to your show? Number one, if you're going to sit behind a microphone and be a podcaster, you better be ready to be shameless. Shameless, shameless. That's literally the last thing I tell to my guests before they go is, well, we've got about 5 minutes left. It is time for your shameless self-promotion, where they get to tell everybody where to go. Remember that. When you have a podcast, you have the ear of a select people. Whether it be about Scandinavian furniture, whether it be about running a podcast or doing tech, whether it's about producing content, you have the ear of a select people. And what's great about that is that you have the opportunity to put a stake in the ground and take a string as far out as you want and build a community. That little foot into a community, be it one of my best things is Facebook groups. Yeah. Go join groups, join the conversation, drop your show, get to the point to where you contribute enough that literally the admin does not think twice about something that you share. Yeah. Like, if you watch old spy movies, the idea is, quote, social engineering. They didn't use any crazy thing to get in the back door. They literally engineered the person sitting at the back door and became friends with them. You know, if you remember, like on Breaking Bad, where the dude kept bringing like cake pops to the lady at the bank, like, hey, yeah, look, I brought these cake pops today. Isn't that fancy? Oh my God, cake pops! She never asked what he was doing in the back, never once, because he was always nice. So yeah, if you're out there,
good for connecting with podcasters and crime.
Yeah, it's quite literally the concept of social engineering. The idea of this is social networking. So if you like what that group is doing, share what that group is doing with your group. That will introduce your group to theirs, and vice versa. The people from that group, especially if you tag that group in your post, will now see the fact that their group that they follow has been tagged and migrate over to your stuff.
Well, the podcast community is a small but big community. Yeah. In fact, one show that I was producing had an interview from one of the shows that he was producing, and that's how we became friends and whatnot, is literally from just podcasting. Yeah. And once you are part of the community, you become your own mascot, right? Like, I literally have probably like 7 different logos of my own on me, but it's because you become your mascot. You are the flag wearer. You are the person who is out there in front saying, hey, this is my show, and this is why you need to stop everything you're doing and press play on what I want to hear, right? Yeah. And it builds. We've been doing this for years now. We've been building, and we've been building. And as we've been building, we've gotten better. We have more gear. We have better philosophies on why we're pressing record, right? But in the end, it's all about having fun, because as soon as you're in front of that microphone, which is not always the case, you're actually talking to your friends. You might not know them all, but they're all your friends.
It's true. It's true. It is an important thing to recognize that the people who end up coming to you are great, and that whatever they represent as a community is your community. They all connected with you about this thing. I love what Chris does with Facebook groups. Like, he just goes in and connects with people. He develops a trust. He shows them, you can trust me. I work in technology, so if you have questions, please come to me. And then they come talk to him, and then they're like, wait, you also do a podcast about this technology stuff? So it's really about making friends and connecting with people. And now here's the thing. The last 2 years has been, as you know, the weirdest in the whole wide world, but it has allowed all of us to globally connect with people that maybe we would never have spoken to in ever, right? Yeah. I didn't get my first guest from India until after the pandemic because I do improv, right? Improv went all online. So then improv's all online. We can do scenes with people anywhere in the whole wide world. And all of a sudden I connected with this like Indian theater doing an improv jam. What? Crazy. Just popped in my Facebook feed. I said, looks good. They were like, hey, you liked our thing. Come be in this jam. What? Now I'm waking up at 8 a.m. to like do jams with like guys in India. Like, are you kidding me right now? But I am now like pals with people across the world. I've connected with that. And mine, again, is about theater. My podcast, Yes But Why podcast, is about theater, largely improv. I have connected with people at improv festivals, at theater festivals, and now I get to go to festivals and meet people there, and I get to be sort of an authority on, guys, I've interviewed like 400 people who do theater full time. Like, let's talk about what it's like to do a career at these festivals where people are going for that. We also love doing festivals like this because this is the niche of nerd, right? But it's a very wide thing. It's like, do I also watch all of the Marvel stuff? Yeah, absolutely I do. Am I also interested in all this cool art that people are making? Yeah, it's great. And there is the podcast pavilion. There is a way to connect with the whole community of podcasters in Houston. Like, this is a hub for that. And how great to be able to connect with that whole community, right? Yeah. So yes, it is important to do festivals to get connected, but these days, some festivals are online. So if you're like, yeah, but I live in Houston and I can't travel, no problem. You just apply, you let them know, I can Zoom in to do this talk at your festival in Norway. I am an expert on these chairs you guys are putting up. And they're like, get in here. We want to hear about it. And then you're like, I'm the host of the Chair Podcast. I'm going to interview the new chair makers in Norway. And then it's like, how did you get to do an interview with a professional? And so there's lots of doors that can be open if you just open your mind to where you can find those doors.
Another thing, just social media wise, where a lot of my people have gotten interviews is off of Clubhouse.
Yep.
Because you're already talking already. They already have the interface, and now you can have your own private room. So you just go in there and you record one end of the phone, and the rest is history. Don't let the technology be a barrier. Yeah. Right?
That's really the biggest thing.
It's scary for me too, but you just got to try, and then what feels comfortable, go with it.
Absolutely.
And then what your people come back and they're like, why don't you have a TikTok? And then I guess I have to make a TikTok because people are asking, right? You know, so you never know. Wait to see what happens.
Nobody wants to see me dance.
Well, speaking of Houston podcasting, we do have Pod Houston coming up. We do have Houston Independent Podcasting Society coming up. Make sure to stick around for those. If y'all are not involved with those, go get involved with them. Seriously, Ozil DeBastos and Jared McClellan are two of the greatest guys around. I've spoken with them at conferences. I'm glad to be here with them today doing stuff. If y'all want to know any more, if y'all have a show that is looking for a home, we're always looking for great stuff at the HC Universal Network. And just for Comicpalooza, we have actually set up a 20% off code for Podcast Cadet. So if you're looking for any consultation help, production help, things like that, we can definitely get you going. CP 2021. CP 2021 is the code. Yeah. So same as the hashtag. Stop on by Podcast Cadet. Use that on your way out the door, and you'll save 20%. Thank you guys so much for all your participation, all your questions. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Keep pressing record.
Always press record.com. So good. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for all your supportive smiles.
And jazz hands.
Hey, guys, the three of us.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Podcast Cadet Training Series. For more episodes and information, follow us online at podcastcadet.com and all major podcast platforms. Join our Podcast Cadet community group on Facebook for the latest in podcast industry news and conversation with industry professionals. The Podcast Cadet Training Series is produced in association with HC Productions and the HC Universal Network of Podcasts. For more great episodes and content, or for information about distribution or sponsoring podcasts, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, remember to press record.